Boom, let's do it. Oh boy, guys, we're talking China. We're talking about Christianity that is not matching up with our normal experience here in the West. And I've brought in a subject matter expert, which, by the way, if you speak Chinese, you can benefit from this because my buddy Yin, Tim Yin, great to have you here, man. Host of the By Every Word podcast. Also on the HFW network, so you can find all of our shows at hfw.network. But I say we get into it. Here we go. I want to start us off with a reading from the great Watchman Nee. You guys ever heard of Watchman Nee? I don't know. You should read a little Nee. It's great. This is the introduction to his book that I'm going to bring up a little bit here as we talk, and the book is called Sit, Walk, Stand. It's a classic. It goes like this. If the life of the Christian is to be pleasing to God, it must be properly adjusted to Him in all things. Too often we place the emphasis in our own lives upon the application of this principle to some single detail of our behavior or of our work for Him. Often we fail, therefore, to appreciate either the extent of the adjustment called for or, at times, even the point for which it should begin. But God measures everything from start to finish by the perfections of His Son. Scripture clearly affirms that it is God's good pleasure to sum up all things in Christ, in whom we were made a heritage, Ephesians 1, 9 through 11. It is my earnest prayer that in this discussion that follows, this book, our eyes may be opened afresh to God, to see that it is only by placing our entire emphasis there that we can hope to realize the divine purpose for us, which is that we should, quote, be unto the praise of His glory, Ephesians 1:12. Man, I like that guy. So, Yin, let's talk, man. Yep. I got to call him Yin because there's too many Tims running around here. So I was just like, can I just call you Yin? He's like, yeah, that's what they do in China anyway. All right, so I want our people to know a couple of things. Who are you? Where are you from? And why did you start a podcast?
Who am I? So you can call me Tim. That's what I go by here in America. I decided to give myself that English name after I heard like 20 different pronunciations of my given name. So I'm a data scientist. That's my occupation. I came to faith in 2012. I was baptized in the US, but I think I truly came to faith after I went back to China for a while. And so, yeah, I've been a Christian for more than 10 years, and I have always have this passion to especially evangelize within the Chinese community. So that's the main reason I started this podcast. It was a great idea from you. Even though I listen to podcasts nowadays all the time, I never thought, well, I can do one. But I think, it was a year, and I started this podcast. It's gonna be mainly in Chinese, but like what we're doing today, from time to time, I might do something in English. So if you speak English only, maybe after 20 episodes, you can find one or two that you can listen to. But it's gonna be mainly in Chinese. So if you have any, Chinese speaking friends,
send it out.
Yeah.
And what kind of content are you doing and covering on the show?
Right now, it's very basic, because, I've been leading Chinese Bible studies, and there's like a seekers class in the Chinese church in town, and you hear like frequently asked questions.
Mm-hmm.
But, when we're doing a Bible study, like when somebody asks a very good question, we can give like 3 minutes, 5 minutes answer. Even that is kind of like too long.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, well, this could be a good opportunity for me to answer some questions like in 20, 30 minutes. Because some of the questions they are very good questions, and you just need more time
to
dive deeper. So that's what I'm doing now.
That sounds exactly like the reason I started Hungry for Wisdom. It's like there's a lot of stuff you just can't get into in other settings, whether it's the pulpit or
Yeah.
you know, a little class or whatever. So it's like let's dive deep.
Yeah. And you know, you can prepare for it, spend a few hours and do some research. You learn something
Yeah.
on that, and then you know, give a good answer. So
The best way to learn is to teach, right?
yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So the story behind that, guys, was Tim. Okay, I'll go with Tim. Now I got to change my brain back again. This is not easy. So Tim was he was talking to me when we first met. My family was having dinner over at his family's house, and he thought, yeah, maybe I should pastor or church plant or whatever. Just kind of kicking around what would God want me doing. And his wife was like, you know, you got the sweetest wife, man. I love your family. They're just great. And she was like, oh, being a pastor's wife, I don't know if that's my thing. So anyway, I called him later and I said, you know, there is a way you can teach the Bible without doing the whole like pastoring thing if you're not sure about that yet. And I said, start a podcast, man. And he just grabbed it and ran with it. So we were like, oh, this is fun. Let's do it. So hey, shout out to producer Tim, by the way, for helping get all that started.
Yeah.
Love that guy. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about, well, a couple of things. Really what I want to cover today is the state of the church in China. And then maybe before we do that, we'll get into some of the differences of worldview between like Western Christians and Eastern Christians, because it's the same gospel, same Christ, kind of not the same approach to things. You know, when I was in a city in China, and I realized it's easier for them, at least in that place. Of course, now China's very diverse, right? So it's not representative of the whole, but like in that place, it was easier for them to understand the reasoning of 1 John than it was Romans. Like it just came more naturally. And as Americans, we find Romans a lot easier because it's like, it's very logical. It's if this, then this, if this, then this.
I see.
Whereas 1 John is kind of like, he's just buzzing around this idea and sort of like, you know, chewing on it a little bit. And people understood that. They felt like they had some handles to it. And I just thought that's really interesting. It's just a different, it's a different default mindset, right? Not so linear, I guess.
Would you say 1 John is more emotional than like Romans is like this system, more like systematic theology?
Yeah,
like this
it's pretty heady.
Great work by Paul, the greatest theologian, and you know, yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, and guys, my video's wigging out over here, so sorry if this gets strange. You know what's happening right now? A spiritual attack. Like Satan lives in the ones and zeros. Yeah, I think 1 John is definitely more relational.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd say emotional, but he's just like, it's a lot more of like, hey, brothers, like, you know, this is love, and you know, love one another. Yeah, all of that. Do you find that tracks across? Like, is that a general trend that the Eastern mindset is, or the Chinese mindset is more emotionally driven?
I would say so. Well, at least like from the Chinese history, we never had, well, probably it's, I don't know, but we never had like a great theologian who puts out like a great systematic theology work. And the greatest Christian writers, most of their works are more like devotional. So yeah, I'll say maybe Chinese Christians are less interested into like a very deep theological debates and stuff.
That does seem to be kind of a European thing. Like even in the Eastern Orthodox Church over there in, you know, like Russian Orthodoxy and Coptic churches, things like that. Like they spend a lot more time talking about union with Christ than they do about these, you know, debates about atonement theories and things like that. So
okay.
Yeah, that makes sense. Although, like, that's kind of surprising in a sense because, like, I mean, just speaking as like a white American dude, we think about Chinese people. We think that, well, they're good at math and they're good engineers, you know? So it's like there's an academic system that is very logically rigorous.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. But most of the Chinese that you have met, probably like, especially in the United States, are like mathematicians or like scientists. Like they are like the smart people that can get to the United States.
Oh, I see. Okay, so we're seeing a skewed sample.
Yeah, but even that, if I say like Chinese churches in the U.S. compared to, you know, English speaking, American churches, I would still say the Chinese churches are a little bit more emotional. I'm not sure if using like that word is the right word.
Yeah, maybe a
But-
little more experiential. Like I don't.
Oh,
I,
yeah, yeah,
I haven't
yeah.
read a ton of Chinese theology, but like I read a part of, because it was really long, a commentary on Hebrews from Witness Lee, and it was very much like that. Like Hebrews is about as deep and theological as you can get, right?
Uh-huh.
But every point was just application to life, and
Uh-huh.
it was very personal.
Yeah.
And he wasn't too concerned. He wasn't too concerned about what we would call scholarly, which is not to say he was intellectually lazy at all. He wasn't. Very deep insights, but yeah, it was very immediately applicable.
Yeah. Relational is more like my experience with Chinese Christians, either in China or here in the U.S. That well, you from time to time you meet one or two Chinese Christians. They are like really into deep theological
Yeah.
books, but most of them, it's more about application in life and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's actually, I was talking about sit, walk, stand, and that's exactly what it is, right? So he takes the book of Ephesians and he does this very careful walkthrough. By the way, it's a tiny little book, guys. If you ever get a chance to read Sit, Walk, Stand, it's like a coffee table book. It's excellent. And he takes Ephesians and he just goes through the three different sections where the verb sitting is emphasized, the verb walking is emphasized, and the verb standing is emphasized. And the whole point is, all right, the first part, sit. He says we don't start our relationship with Christ with work. We start with rest, right? We rest in him. And then we can go ahead and walk and get some stuff done. And then in the end, we will be caused to stand and we get the armor of God and all that kind of stuff. So it's like, I wouldn't have seen it that way, right? But he's just like, hey, Ephesians is a manual for life. And I look at it and I think, oh, Ephesians is a diagram of the gospel in the front and like Christology and then ecclesiology and how to organize a church. And so I'm making a map out of everything, where he was just like, no, it's life, man.
Oh yeah,
Do some life.
Yeah, I haven't read that book yet. It's been recommended to me a long time ago. And I have some other Watchman Nee book in my house, given to me by some American Christians.
Oh yeah.
But they're more like a daily devotional stuff.
Yeah. He did a lot of that.
Yeah.
Is he a big deal in China like he is here?
He used to. But like if now well, I guess as a Chinese Christian, you definitely heard about his name, but I don't think people still read his books
Okay.
much. Probably because some of that are illegal.
Yeah, they probably don't want him reading a whole lot of the book, because
Yeah.
he was imprisoned. Actually, this book came out while he was in prison, right? He wrote it,
okay.
and then he got imprisoned in, I don't know what it was, 52 or 54 or something like that. That book came out in 1957, and so he was already in prison for like counter-revolutionary activities, basically.
Yeah. I would say Watchman Nee has a bigger reputation in the West than in China.
Interesting.
Yeah, he's probably the most known Chinese Christian writer
Yeah, definitely for us.
in the world. So yeah, he has great influence in the Western world. Because many of his writings are translated into, and he can preach in English.
Oh,
I
really?
think. Yeah.
Okay.
Because he grew up from that period of the modern Chinese history that most people who like graduated with a college degree are like graduated from universities established by Christian missionaries. So, their generation got the Western education.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so like when you got one thing that struck me when I was, I was with some, I was with some Christians over in China, and it was the kind of thing where it was like there were people there that said we shouldn't be doing what we were doing in the place we were doing it, right? So, but we were going through just systematic theology, and I was struck by how certain things hit them differently. So, for example, the parts of eschatology where Jesus comes back as a judge, that this was a group of people that were under some pressure, right? And that struck them as really good news because they were like, oh, finally, like somebody's balancing it. Yeah. And I realized, like, in our setting, that's something we have to make people okay with. It's like, yeah, Jesus comes back with a sharp sword sticking out of his mouth, and it's and he cuts down the nations and things like that, and blood runs through the streets as high as the horse's bridle, and people are like, wow, Jesus is mean. But there, the people were like, finally, somebody's going to bat for us. You know what I mean? So it was a very different. It just hits you differently, I think, depending on the experiences. And the Chinese Christians are having some tough experiences right now.
Yeah, that's a good point. That when you are enjoying your comfortable American life, do you really want Jesus to return like tomorrow?
Right. There's that country song. It says, everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to go now. And I'm like, what a horrible song.
Yeah, but like back in China, especially when God put you in a difficult situation, that's when you really have to rely on him and, hope for his return. Because if every day what you see is injustice, then you really thirst for justice. So, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So what is the state of the church in China right now? Because, I mean, first off, it's hard to get information out, right? So how do we know?
Well, I should say that it's been a while since I got back to China. So I'm certainly not the expert on the state of the church in China right now. What I can get is, from my Chinese Christian friends, and some of the news that I heard. Right now, it's not a great time or a good time for Chinese Christian, especially with the, I can call it like the new administration. Well, he's in power for 10 years now. And the whole atmosphere, or like the whole, I don't know how to say, but it's more strict, and there are more Christian leaders being put to prison, and the government, the local government, are doing more things to sort of like suppress your freedom of religion. There's no freedom of religion, but it's a complicated thing that the policy are quite different because China is such a big country. So in some places they have enjoyed a certain amount of freedom for a while, but now it's more like everywhere it's been. There have been some enforcements to make it hard for you to worship. And then if you really try to evangelize, you go to a police station, or for the leaders, they even get sentenced to a few years in prison, which are like, when I was in China, say more than 10 years ago, there was a certain degree of freedom. You can buy any sorts of spiritual books online. Right now, you couldn't even buy a single copy of the Bible. So that's just one example.
Yeah, and then I've heard stories about back in the 70s and 80s where people would just disappear. Apparently the persecution was really bad back then. I'm hoping it's not going back to that, where people would, have harm done to their physical bodies and things like that. But I mean, who knows?
Probably not as bad as 70s and 80s, because in the 70s and 80s, there are other political movements going on. And sometimes the government will specifically target Christians or religious people. But right now, I wouldn't say it's as bad as back then. But still, yeah, especially if you are a famous leader in a big church, there is. It's normal for you to be called into the police station and they question you or even physically harm you for a little bit.
So they just make sure that there's pressure on you.
Oh yeah, exactly. And if you really don't go their way, they put you in prison. Especially if you are really famous, like you're so famous that even the Western world knows about you, then there's a big possibility that you got put into prison.
Yeah. Okay. So explain the layout of the church in China, because there's kind of like there's the underground stuff, and then there's the three self churches that are kind of like government sanctioned in a certain sense. Like, so what does Christianity look like? What are these two worlds of Christianity in China?
Yeah, so there is a church, the government-approved church. In Chinese, it's called the Three Self Church.
Do you remember what the three selves are? It's like
self-governed,
self-governed,
self-sustained, or something like that.
I think it's like self-funded or whatever.
And self-evangelizing. Like, only Chinese people can preach the gospel. So it's, the Three Self is mostly about, we don't want foreigners,
Okay.
intervening, because they are afraid that some foreigners, call themselves missionaries, but actually work for the foreign government.
They're spies.
Yeah. Something like that. So, what was the question? Okay, so the government-approved church, they exist, and I actually attended the government-approved church in my city for a while, less than a year. And then there's the underground church, or some people call house churches. So the house churches, it's hard to get like information about them.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Because they are sort of like hidden. But I would say most Christians are in the house churches. The government-approved churches have, I don't know, by my guess, probably 30%.
And so why would one choose one over another? Like, what's the difference in how you're going to be taught to follow Jesus in these two different places?
Well, first of all, the government church is the only one that's like on the surface that you can find.
Okay.
Like, even if you want to find a house church or like an underground church, you need somebody to introduce you to.
Right. Now, do they have specific church buildings, or do they just let them meet wherever else, or like a Three Self church?
Well, if you are underground, then you don't have a church building.
Right. I mean, like for the government-approved churches,
okay.
Do they let them have buildings with crosses on them and stuff?
They used to let them have cross. Then they took away the crosses.
No crosses.
Yeah. At least in some parts of China. So the government-approved church, yeah, you can worship there, you can have fellowship there, and it also depends on the local government. Because some local government can be very strict, but some local government can be quite liberal about, what you do there.
So I've heard stories about them like choosing what songs you can sing. You can't sing any songs that have certain doctrines in them, or
yeah, definitely.
They check what your sermon is going to be before you preach it.
Yeah. So, they definitely check your sermons. So the ministers there are all trained by. There are only 2 seminaries, like official seminaries in China.
2 in the whole country.
Yeah. So they all graduated from there. So even before they come to this church, they know, how not to anger the government.
Mm-hmm.
They know what to say and what not to say. So, and as they are ministering the local churches, there are local officials that they sort of govern religious affairs. So they will make sure you don't say anything that it's not appropriate.
Yeah. And they're worried about revolutionary activities and things like that, or like.
Yeah, sure. Because there have been cases. There are many cults in China.
Many cults?
Yeah, like whether it's a Christian cult.
Okay.
Or non-Christian, like when they have enough people, it usually gets political. So when you probably heard of Falun Gong.
No.
That was the biggest cult in China, and
Was that the one that did like 15,000 weddings in one day?
That's in Korea. That's
That was
a Christian
Korea.
cult
Okay.
in Korea.
Okay.
So the Falun Gong, they were so popular that they actually gather enough people to go to the capital and put out a huge protest.
Really?
In the capital, and so that's why the Chinese government put a good effort to sort of crash down every single one of them. Most of them are in the United States now.
Yeah, I'd imagine. Now, I heard something that, and I hope this is true, or that I've said it right, because I've repeated it quite a few times. But I heard that the word for God in Mandarin is something like, higher king or higher emperor. Like there's some kind of comparative term. And that's one of the things that makes the government nervous over there. So is it the way they refer to God, is that a problem politically?
I wouldn't quite say so. There are 2 ways to refer to God in Mandarin. One is, I would say, like the more correct way. The other one actually comes from Taoism. I think that was the one that you were referring to. That it talks about God as like the supreme king.
Okay.
So.
And what's the word for that in Chinese?
In Chinese, it's 上帝.
Okay, I was way off. In my memory, it was something different. So you say it again?
上帝.
Shangdi.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that comes from Taoism. But either way is fine. So there are actually 2 versions of the Chinese Bible. You can either use the Shen version, which refers to God, or the 上帝 version.
Okay. Yeah. And so then what about those more traditional religions? Taoism, Buddhism, are they tolerated, or are they squashed out the same way as Christianity?
They are more tolerated, especially Buddhism, because Buddhism does not believe in like a creator. It's more like a philosophy.
Right.
And it's more, there are a lot of superstitions going on with Buddhism. At least most Chinese people, like my mom, during the New Year would go to the Buddhist temple because she just pray for good stuff to happen. And that's almost like all Chinese do, even if they don't believe in Buddhism. So it's more like a culture thing. So the government doesn't really see Buddhist temples as like a threat.
Okay.
But Christianity is different. Christianity, from their perspective, originates from the West and has such a huge impact in the Chinese history. They used to be like, from the government's perspective, they just treat Christianity as something that the Western world uses to infiltrate China. So that's quite different. While Buddhism is more local.
Right.
And Taoism is so marginalized that they don't worry about it.
It's just not a
too
whole. It's
much.
not a big force.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, it makes sense, right? Because when you say Jesus is Lord, that's a pretty exclusive statement, right? And if you're trying to control a lot of people, and you've got however many million of them looking at you saying, "Okay, we understand your instructions. We'll check with our real boss and let you know if we're going to comply or not." Like, that's a problem.
Yeah. I think you have hit the real problem in the government approved church, the Three Self Church. Because if everything you believe or you want to do is according to your God, then how about our government? How about the party? How about our chairman? What if they ask you to do something different? Would you comply? And like, who do you listen to? I think that's their kind of like fear.
Right.
So that's why they make sure that you will have the national flag in the church. You will have whatever Chinese government slogans in the church.
But no crosses anymore.
They just it's sort of like at the beginning of Christianity, is Jesus law or is Caesar law? That kind of situation.
Yep.
So
people haven't changed much, have they?
No. At least governments haven't changed that much.
Yeah. Well, I mean, power is power, right? And when we fight over power, you're going to wind up butting up against Christ because he's got it all.
Yeah. And you mentioned like the house churches. So the house churches, again, my experience with that, it's not a lot. It's more from what I heard. And this is the interesting thing that I would say many U.S. denominations, have their churches in China, but it's hard to know exactly what they do unless you are in that specific church and then you go to their meetings and then you know what their mission looks like in China. So the house churches, I don't think anybody has like a full picture of it, or like enough information. Probably Chinese government does that.
They're pretty good at getting that stuff.
Yeah. I think they know most of what's going on in the house churches. It's just it depends on what they decide to do at a time. Then let's put all of them in prison, which they cannot do.
Can't do it. Well, and like you said, like local governments are different, right? So I'm sure there's probably if some local police chief or governor of some sort, right? If he's got political ambitions, he may handle the Christian situation a different way, or either be more lenient or more strict depending on who he's trying to impress or whatever, right? Like, people are people.
Yeah. And I would say, it depends on the size of the church. If you are a really big church, thousands of people, then the local government will really pay attention.
Do Three Self churches get that big?
Oh, I'm talking about house churches.
Thousands of people in house, like a movement of house churches?
Yeah. House churches can get very big. But even Three Self churches can get that big too. Because you think about, the big cities in China, Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, they have like 20 million people, something like that. And they have 5 government approved churches. Like some of them, like this one I went to in Shenzhen, they have thousands of people worshiping each Sunday.
Okay, but then how do you get a lot of people in a house church? Like, so the house churches, they are real like house churches. You go to a building and they tell you which room you go to. Most Chinese people live in like a condo, and you just go in there and they secretly worship there. But if you are a house church of 500 people,
like the one I asked like, how big is your church? And she answered, our church is pretty small. It's only 500 people.
Were they like in an abandoned warehouse or something?
And so I asked, like, where do you worship? And they said they worship in a university auditorium every Sunday.
Huh.
And the government knows about it.
They just haven't interfered yet?
They interfere from time to time. Sometimes they come and say, no, you cannot worship here. And they just switch to a different place.
It's the cost of doing business, huh?
Yeah, yeah. But yes, from time to time, they will call the pastor or the elder and just sort of warm him a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, lean on him some. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, because all the house churches I was in, they were in houses, except for one that was in kind of a converted warehouse type of thing. I mean, it wasn't 500 people. We were talking maybe
It depends on the local government.
80 or 90, but
yeah,
yeah. But it was like apartments and stuff, and that's why I'm guessing it's different city to city, is because in that place it was like, hey, there's more than 20 people, we gotta split these guys up or something like that. It was less about how many people were gathered and more about how many people were seen coming in at one time.
Oh yeah. Because there is always a security guy downstairs, and they let people, if like every Sunday morning at 9 a.m. 20 people go into that exact building or exact apartment,
yeah,
something's going on.
Yeah.
Or when they sing psalms and the neighbor can hear.
Yeah, and then there's these issues where Christianity will preach something very different than what the government wants, not even just in terms of like government power, but just how they want the society to look, right? So I think of like the one-child policy, which has changed now to a degree, but I mean, Christianity would never prescribe a one-child policy, right? Christianity is going to be like, more babies, awesome, like let's do it, right? And so that's a rub right there.
Yeah, but you will never hear, well, at least in that Three South church I went to, you will never hear the pastor criticize one-child policy.
Sure.
But you're right. Some people in the house churches that, I know some people, and they just have as many babies as they want. But then again, if you have more than one baby, at least at that time, you need to pay a fine.
Mm-hmm. And you can't get certain jobs with the government and things like that.
Oh yeah, yeah. So then the Christian will think, should we, comply with that law? And so at the end they decide, oh yeah, we're gonna pay that fine.
Yeah, exactly. Well, okay, so now I want to talk about this because this is hard for Americans to understand. Not only the one-child policy, but the effects that it has had, right? So I was talking to somebody of a certain generation, a Chinese person, that said, I don't have brothers and sisters. My kids don't have aunts and uncles and cousins. Like, we use the term aunts, uncles, cousins to basically mean different things. Like, this person's very close to us. She's auntie whoever. But it really like obliterated the structure of the family, like the natural structure of the family in some ways, right?
Yeah. I'm one-child policy product.
Yeah, and you were born in what year?
1988.
Okay.
So yeah, my parents they both got pretty good job. So yeah, they cannot. Well, actually, they are minority athletes. So I think they probably could have more than one, and they decided not to. But yeah, I don't have any siblings, but I have a lot of cousins. So the thing is, at the beginning of the communist regime, what they say is have as many babies as you can, because that will make our country stronger.
And this is in the 50s in the revolution, the Cultural Revolution?
50s. Well, Cultural Revolution is later. Like 50s, 60s. So my parents have many siblings. My mom has 4. My dad has 3. So I have many cousins. But yeah, I'm the single child.
Mm-hmm.
So I grew up alone. So it messed up a few generations.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, at the beginning they say has as many children as you can, and then they realize, oh, the population is out of control, and they say one child policy for a few generations, and they realize the structure of our society is unstable. We have too many old people and not enough young people to work, and they like, you need to have 2 or 3, like, so they lift the one child policy a few years ago, and so it's like, didn't you guys think about your policy before it's gonna affect generations of people,
Power is an interesting thing, man, because when you think you can control things that you can't control, like it gets out of hand real fast, People are like that. I don't know though, because there's something underlying that, which is somebody thinks that they're God, right? They're in control of life and when life gets to happen and things like that. So there's a deeper philosophical assumption being made when a government says you should have this many kids or you can only have this many kids. It's like that's not really a human decision to make.
Yeah.
Right? And so why from your perspective, why is it that communism or this form of government, well, let me back up. For the listener, Chinese communism is a little bit different, right? It's kind of like mixed with capitalism in some ways and things like that. So you can't just say communism and expect it to apply to everything in the world that's communist. But this particular communist form of government, what is it that makes it so opposite of Christianity?
Well, communism in itself, by its nature, is very anti-religion or anti-Christianity. Its whole worldview is based on that. Like, I think this is from Karl Marx saying religion is the opium of the people. And so, whenever you get communism, you get totalitarianism. And a totalitarian government wants to control everything. Not only how many kids you have. They want to control your thoughts. Like, even if you think something different from the government, they punish you. So yeah. And, Christianity, we believe that everyone is created in the image of God. Everyone deserves, respect and dignity. You should treat every person as created in God's image. But when you have like communism or a totalitarian government, then they don't respect.
Here's what I've never
beings.
understood about that mindset. If let's say that you're one of the oppressors, okay? You're a communist, a high-ranking communist official, and you're a totalitarian. You want the power. What if you get it? Like what's the win there? I can't imagine if it actually worked and I was in control of everybody's life. That'd be horrible. Like, I wouldn't be happy. That'd be like its own kind of hell. So like, what's the actual goal? What's the win? I've never been able to figure that out psychologically. I kind of get it politically, but like on an individual level, what do people actually want that are doing this?
Okay, so this is just me guessing what the leaders.
Yeah, we're just a couple of guys kicking it around.
Yeah. What they so, like, if you have the power to make every decision for every person in the country, like you said, it's such a huge responsibility. Who wants to take that? Yeah. But I would say many of them are not thinking about that question. They're thinking about those few guys, my political opponents. They want me out. So that's what they are thinking. Like, they just want to grab onto that power and fight for his power.
And it's not so much power to make decisions in your life, it's power to stay in office and be in control in general.
Yeah, that would be my guess.
Wow.
Yeah.
That makes a little more sense.
Okay.
Because, yeah, I mean, controlling an individual's life, it's like, you know, I mean, we love being parents to our kids, but, you know, by the time they're 16, it's like, all right, at some point you got to move out and make your own decisions. You know, I'm not doing this for you. The nanny state is baffling to me.
Yeah. So yeah, it's more like what I mentioned. Sometimes when the government makes some decisions, put out some policies, and you're like, why do you do that? It's like, but then, especially, you know, we don't have elections, and the officials, they just care whether they can keep their position or get promoted. So
right.
So that's how all those policies that don't make sense come out.
Yeah, well, I asked a question once when I was in China with my host. I said, "Hey, how come this is like that or whatever?" And he says to me, he says, "Don't ever ask why in China." He said, first off, you know, it was some backroom conversation, you know, because there's corruption and stuff. And then you got 5,000 years of tradition. And then you got people, you know, that disagree about it. Like, you're just going to get frustrated. Don't ask why.
Yeah. But it's interesting that, you know, when we have foreigners coming over and they see something that doesn't make sense and they ask that question, and you can think, oh, so that actually don't make sense. You know?
Wow. So that's kind of its own, like just the question itself from an outside perspective plants seeds of, you know,
so
seeds of discontent, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, just different perspective. Yeah.
Sure.
If you go to a country, a foreign country, and then you see something that don't make sense to you, like maybe those people haven't thought about what actually don't make sense.
Right.
But
it's just the way we've always done it.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, we all fall into that. We do this because we do this because we do this because we...
Because for thousands of years, that's how we do it.
Yeah. And some of that stuff makes sense. I mean, even in the Bible, you know, it's like, listen, don't move the ancient boundary, right? Like, if your father put a fence there, he knew something you might not know, so respect it. So I totally get that. Like, traditionalism has a lot of advantages. And when you lose that tradition, you wind up with some of the problems that our culture has, right? Where we don't respect our elders enough to gain wisdom from them in general. So it's, you know, I don't know. You can fall off both sides of the horse, I guess.
Yeah. I heard one missionary who went to Japan and came back, and his biggest impression for Japan is when the elderly people talk, like the young people just stay quiet. They don't they are very respectful towards the you know, people older than them. So that was a culture shock to him.
And so he was a missionary from the U.S.?
From the U.S. to Japan.
Yeah.
So.
No, exactly. I heard a guy, an older pastor, and he said, I've been going to Asia for 30 years, and the longer I go, or the more time I spend in Asia, the better it gets because I'm older, and so I get more and more respect. He says, now I'm like 65. I don't even have to do anything for people to respect me. They just give me respect. So, very different than our culture.
Yep.
So if we were to take American Christianity and kind of like boil it down to, and I'm talking about, you know, evangelical, gospel-centered Christianity, right? We were to boil it down to kind of a theme of what makes us tick as Christians. I would probably say something like, you know, substitutionary atonement, like Jesus died in my place, right? But that's a very Romans-based answer. You know what I mean? So like, what would a summary be of Chinese Christianity if you could boil it down? What are some of the big themes that you're going to hear? Is it, you know, like I know in some places, not in China, but like in Eastern Europe, it's you know, union with Christ, or it's the Trinity, you know, participation with the Trinity, things like that. So are there overarching themes in Chinese Christianity that are different, kind of a different lifeblood than American Christianity?
When Christians they evangelize on the streets of China, which don't happen a lot, but sometimes it happens, they tend to focus on blessings from God, because it's kind of like Chinese tradition that we all like blessings. Like when we have our traditional festivals, it's always like, oh, we want these blessings. And it's not that they really don't have this concept of a god. They do have this kind of like vague concept of a higher being who's in control. That's why, you know, they pray for like gods they don't even know, something like that. So from what I know, you know, when Chinese Christians try to preach the gospel, try to introduce the gospel to other people, they would mention, you know, blessings from God, which could be like it could be not the whole gospel,
right? Yeah, it could skew towards prosperity,
but at least that's what they do at first. But for Chinese Christians, I think it's easier for Chinese people to accept the concept of sin.
Really?
Yeah. That you almost don't need to persuade them or convince them that people are sinful. Because that's what they see every day in their daily life. Because it's such a corrupt society.
Yeah.
Like every official is corrupt. And, you know, the people who are anti-corruption, as long as they get the power, they become corrupt. And that's like every Chinese know that.
Why aren't you afraid to talk about this?
Talk about what?
Like the
corruption in China?
I've never heard somebody criticize China in public before. Oh. Well, a Chinese person.
Okay.
Like normally it's like, I mean, this thing's going out on the internet. You know what I mean? Like that seems like a bad idea for a Chinese citizen.
Well, first we're speaking English, so and it's well known facts. Like, yeah. The government is corrupt, and almost every official is corrupt. So, yeah, whenever I talk about, you know, the gospel, Jesus, and I don't need to spend too much time to convince the Chinese listener that everyone is inherently sinful.
We all need salvation. Huh?
Yeah.
And then is there a well-formed view of the afterlife in Chinese culture? Because, I mean, communism is inherently atheistic, right? But has that really transferred? Do you have to convince people that eternal life is even desirable?
I'm sorry, could you ask that question again?
Well, so like you don't need to convince them about sinfulness, right?
Yeah.
But we're offering eternal life. Do people believe in an afterlife at all before you introduce that to them?
So that's a more difficult topic, because a lot of people are influenced by Buddhism, and Buddhism doesn't believe in like there is like an end. They believe in resurrection.
Yeah, you got your reincarnation.
It's like a loop. You know, you do good things, your afterlife will be better. Like your next life will be better. And if you do bad things, you know, you could turn into a pig or something. So a lot of people are influenced by that. I wouldn't say like they actually believe that. And also we like, because we are brought up believing that all religions are false. There's only a materialistic work. There isn't really any spiritual things going on. Like those are all superstitions.
And yet, people still build in the spirit step when they build houses. That was
yeah,
one
yeah.
of the that was the weirdest thing I saw over there. I'm like, what is going? Can you explain the spirit step?
Could you? Like, I don't exactly know what you're talking
Yeah,
about.
so you got like I went to like an old castle, right?
Mhm.
500-year-old castle.
Yeah.
And in the doorways, there's a step. You have to step over it. And they said it was to keep the spirits out.
Oh, I see. I gotcha. Yeah, that's the traditional like superstition thing.
So like
you know?
spirits only stay on the ground?
Yeah, yeah. So a lot of things that we do, just to you don't even know what its origins
Yeah.
are. So yeah, like on one point we've been a communism country for decades, and we should believe in Marxism that there isn't anything spiritual. But on the other hand, people are just like incurably religious.
It's true.
That
Yeah.
if you tell them, if you do this, the higher power will favor you and stuff. A lot of people, especially people in the countryside, still believe that.
Well, oh yeah, like I saw a wedding,
Mhm.
and there were fireworks at the wedding, and I was like, "Oh, cool! You guys do fireworks at weddings?" And they were like, "Yeah, they say it scares away the evil spirits." And I'm like, "Do people believe that?" And they said, "No, nobody believes, but it's tradition, right?" So
Yeah.
yeah, they were like burning little gold leaves of paper or something at funerals to
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know.
Yeah, so yeah, those are the traditions. Yeah, so like, on the surface, like none of us should believe in any, like higher power.
Mhm.
But even the government officials go to the Buddhist temple to pray for blessings, like every year.
Yep.
So,
Going through the motions.
because he wants to be stable in his position, or he wants to get a promotion, like,
That's a good way to put it, man. People are incurably religious.
Oh yeah, that's coming from R.C. Sproul, I think.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. We were made to worship, and we're gonna.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah, exactly.
might even worship a political leader,
Oh yeah,
and they might like it.
Yeah. When I look at the Chinese history, you look at like the most ancient artifact that you can find, and it's I don't know how to say that in English. It's kind of like a great bowl.
Hmm.
And what do they do with it? They sacrifice animals in it. Like, and then you ask, to whom?
Hmm.
To whoever. Like, those Chinese people, they never have the Old Testament, God actually commanding the Israelites to make sacrifice. But why do those Chinese
They
people
figured it out. Yeah,
sacrifice to whatever gods in their mind?
interesting. Now, and is it ancestor worship on occasion? Is that a big thing in China?
Yeah, your ancestor worship is also, so basically two big things in China. One is Buddhism, one is Confucianism.
Yeah.
And Confucianism doesn't really have a god there. It's more like philosophy.
Yeah.
It's more about how the society works, and it is pretty big on the ancestor worship.
Okay.
And can we actually call it worship? They do have something in their house, or when they go to the tomb of their ancestors, they kneel and bow and stuff. So,
But that's just honor, right? Like, are they
yeah, you could.
Are they praying to them? Are they asking them for advice? Are they trying to cross the life-death barrier?
They do ask for the ancestor to bless them, which is like, why do you think they have the ability to?
Yeah.
But they do that. But also, it's sort of like honoring.
Sure.
So, the early Christian missionaries, they went to China. They they somewhat need to respect that, and have to come to terms with that because it's just such a big tradition.
Sure, sure. And it's such a good thing to honor your ancestors. And if you do
Yeah,
that
yeah.
with a body posture of kneeling or something, that's not necessarily a false god, right? And so yeah,
Yeah.
it's probably hard to find the line sometimes.
Yeah, well, another thing they do is they have fake money and they burn those, and they believe their ancestors will receive those and use those.
That's those gold leaves. We were walking in some
Oh, really?
market, yeah, and I saw this like stack of gold leaves sitting on this pallet. I said, "What is that?" And they said, "Oh, they burn it at funerals." I'm like,
Okay,
what?
okay. Those are the money that they can use in wherever they are.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and yeah, after I became a Christian, I go with my family to sort of like, I consider it honoring my ancestors. So at that point, I try not to burn those. Like, I don't participate in that, but I will stand there and
Sure.
show my respect.
Yeah, that's always tough. So how did you end up becoming a Christian? You were in the U.S.
Yes, first time I went to a church was in Philadelphia, where I did my master's degree. So, yeah, one night, just another Chinese student asked me if I want to go to church. I was like, why do I want to go to church? And she's like, they have free food. I was alone here in the United States. I didn't cook a single meal before I came here. I was like, okay, I'm going.
Yeah.
But
you knew there was at least one girl because she invited you, and there was free food. That's a win.
Yeah. So, but then they actually do like English class, help you with your English, and then in the second half they open the Bible, tell you a story, and I was really interested in the histories I can learn from the Bible, because when we were taught history, we never taught any of that history.
Oh, okay.
I was at least interested in the history of the Israelites.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I gotta wonder, like, if people separated from home are more open-minded, I guess. I mean that's obviously true, right? Like, a freshman in college is easier to persuade of something that their parents wouldn't agree with. But do you think that just being in a different country, all new inputs and everything to you, do you think that helped open you up to the gospel? Or were you already moving that direction before you came to the U.S.?
Well, I would say every Chinese student that come to the U.S., is already somewhat open-minded because they want to go to a different country. They want to see something different. And yes, many Chinese Christians, they came to faith because they came here to study. And then they went back to China to help with the church there.
Yeah, missionaries.
Yeah. So, yeah, at least many of the Chinese Christians I know came to faith like that. So, yeah.
So what about the Chinese community here in our town? I mean, there's probably Chinese people out where you're working and stuff. I mean, who's your target audience for this podcast then? Is it Christians, not yet Christians, everybody?
Like for the Chinese church, for example, in town, we do try to share our faith with, other Chinese people that come to this town, especially who are here just for a short period of time. And when they come here, it's as if the Chinese church is the only, say, Chinese community center for them. If they want Chinese food, if they want to speak to people in Chinese, if they want to just have some company, many of them will go to the Chinese church.
Yeah.
And that's a good opportunity to share the gospel. Some of them are here for a few months, some of them here for a few years. And yeah, for example, when I was at the university, I led this Chinese Bible study, and there was an exchange student She came to our Bible study only for a very short period of time because it was only like a semester she was there. She didn't come to faith at that time, but she kept going to church after she left, and she's a Christian now. So, yeah, situations like this.
Yeah. Well, listen, Yin, I could talk to you. Tim, sorry, my bad.
Either one is fine.
Whatever. I could talk to you all day, man, and we'll have to do this again. Guys, listen, go subscribe to Buy Every Word. I mean, even if you don't speak Chinese or if you don't know anybody that does, just give them a numbers boost. Give them a sub, all right? Give them a like and subscribe. Anyway, I'm really glad you're doing what you're doing, man, and thank you for taking some time out to fill us in on some of this stuff. We'll have you back.
Yeah. They are very nice talking to you, and I have learned some things from you.
Well, by the grace of God, may it be possible. We'll talk to you soon, buddy.
Hungry for Wisdom is a ministry of Grace and Truth Community in West Richland, Washington. 1 John 4:19. We love him because he first loved us. If you are enjoying Hungry for Wisdom, please make sure to like, subscribe, and share it. Leave us a 5-star rating if you think we've earned it.